So I just got back from a weekend fishing trip and it's 9 o'clock at night and I came home to something in the mail. And I'm a unboxing junkie, so I want to get into it as fast as possible, but I want to have my first reactions be what I record. So, I got this from the fine folks over at gearbest.com, which they contacted me, asked if I wanted to do a couple reviews on their products. And I said yes, because why not? Even though they gave me this is still going to be my same reviewing format. It's going to be unchanged and unbiased. I'm just going to tell you guys exactly what I think, just like I have with everything else I've done. So keep that in mind. You guys will hear my honest opinion about this. What we've got here, I think this is a $40 or $50 4K action camera. This is like a GoPro Competitor of sorts. It actually looks quite like a GoPro as well. So let's crack into it and see what it's got. There's the camera, and there's the accessories. Accessories first. Velcro straps, waterproof housing backplate, clothing clip. This thing does have the standard 3-prong GoPro mounting setup. As you can see there, that's exactly like what you get in the GoPro stuff. It's a little bent, but it's a $40 camera. I'll have this exact camera linked in the description, so check that out if you guys are interested in this. And I'll also have the actual price of it right here. I think it's around 40 bucks, between 40 and 50. Tripod mount, all kinds of mounting accessories, and a micro USB charging cable. Alright, now for the actual camera here. It looks like it's a standard GoPro clip as well. Alright, this is a GoPro clip. This is the clip on the camera here. This same action camera clip here goes into the same clip. So this is GoPro compatible with all the accessories that are currently available for the GoPro lineup of stuff. And there it is. It's, let me get my... So this is it next to a real GoPro. It's about the same dimensions, maybe a little bit taller. The width is identical. There's a pretty good bit of difference in the thickness department. But overall, very similar layout. A few extra buttons, but it doesn't feel heavy enough to have the battery installed with it. And there's this ridiculous way of opening up the battery compartment. You've got to pull this tab back and pull this door open at the same time. But there's only enough room there for one finger. That's stupid. How are you ever supposed to open that up without a tool? That's just aggravating. Anyways, so let's see if we can get this powered on. Oh, look at that. Check it out. Alright, so that's pretty cool. It's got an LCD on the back of it that you can look at. Oh. Well, it's dead now. But let's see. So you can see what you're shooting, but that probably hits the battery life pretty hard, so it's kind of a trade-off. But I think the new GoPros also have an LCD on the back, so it might be comparable. I'll do all kinds of tests when I do get this thing up and running correctly. So first impressions is it feels a little hollow. I'm gonna go ahead and put an SD card in it. I had to get a new SD card because I crashed my drone at the beach and lost it forever, but that's for another video. So I'm gonna get to know this thing a little bit better and get back to you guys, let you know what the thoughts are on it, and compare it head to head against the GoPro. So currently we're at 1080p 60 frames a second, as we can see up here. I've already shot all the video with this camera for this YouTube video, and a time lapse that lasted about 30 minutes. And it's still got 2 of the 3 bars of battery, so it did all right so far. Hit the mode button on the front. We have got 16 megapixel images, hit it again, and we are in slow motion mode, which is 720p, 120 frames a second. And when you shoot in this mode, it automatically slows it down into slow motion. Hit the mode button again, and we're in the playback. Hit it one more time, and we're in the settings. First up is the video settings. We have got 1080p 60 frames a second, 1080p 30, 720p 120 frames a second, 60 frames a second, and 30 frames a second, and then 4K 15 frames a second. That should not even be an option. If your camera can't do 4K at least 24p, just don't even bother putting it in the camera. Next is 2.7K at 30 frames a second, and we're back around at 1080p 60 frames a second. You can record the sound or not. There's a time-lapse mode. There is a loop recording, which can be done on 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and 5 minutes. Then there is slow motion. You can pick the slow motion between 1080p 60 frames a second and 720p 120 frames a second. The mode button on the front again, and it will jump to picture mode. You can change the resolution from 16 megapixels down to 12, which is where the GoPro shoots at, is 12 megapixels. You can go down to 8, 5, and 2 megapixels. You can then have it be timed, which is your shutter timer. Auto mode. This is your interval shooting mode here. So you can pick it 3 seconds, and it'll take a picture every 3 seconds, 10 seconds, picture every 10 seconds, and so on. Then drama shot is basically burst mode. 3 frames a second, 5 frames a second, or 10 frames a second with a single shutter push. We've got an exposure compensation, white balance, image rotation, driving mode, which means it will record with the screen off and constantly loop. Wi-Fi on and off, which does not work with the app that you can download for it, so that's kind of a bummer. Light source frequency, you can pick between 50 or 60 hertz in case you're recording around LED lights that flicker or fluorescent lights in like an office environment. LED indicator light lets you know when you're recording. Screensaver, which is basically the screen timeout. You can pick 10, 20, or 30 seconds. The auto shutdown, you can set to save your battery if you forget to turn it off. You can select the language. Alright, this is a quick test of the image quality at 1080p 60 frames a second, because I think that this will be the most used way that it's done. It's actually raining a little bit out right now, but it's not too bad. I can still walk around. I've got this mounted on the Joby GorillaPod to give you an idea of what it's like as far as stability goes. It does not have built-in optical stabilization, so it's in the same boat as the GoPro is as far as that. It looks like the screen on the back does go out after a minute or so. When I just turned it around to film something else, I noticed that the screen was off, so I had to push one of the side buttons to get it to turn back on. It just went off again, so it looks like it's a 30-second timer and the screen goes off to conserve battery. So that's good to know as far as the screen timeout goes. You can probably change that in the settings to get better battery life. Alright, this is 2.7K at 30 frames a second. So this will be the highest usable resolution that you can shoot with this camera, is 2.7K at 30 frames a second. The 1080p may look a little bit better than this because of the smoother motion, but if you're shooting something that's fairly consistent without a lot of speed and motion changes, then the 2.7K at 30 frames a second should do the job just fine. And here we go with slideshow mode. This is 4K at 15 frames a second. This probably looks horrible. I don't know if there's any way to... I don't know if this will be even usable at all, but we'll still give it a shot. This is walking fairly quickly. And now for a nice slow pan. It's so choppy. But I guess if you move really slowly, you can appreciate the resolution. Alright, well, let's go see how this footage turns out. I am not sure how it turned out or how the audio will be on this, but this will be in contrast to the A6500 with the Rode Video Micro on it, so that might give you a contrast of what it sounds like. If you're curious as to what the A6500 sounds like without the microphone on it, go check out my video I did about the Rode Video Micro, and you can kind of get an idea of what the difference is there. Okay, so that footage, we can all agree was a little less than spectacular. But the 1080p 60 frames a second looked okay, and that was shot at around 32 megabits per second. The 2.7K at 30 frames a second definitely looked the best, and that was at about 33 megabits per second. The 4K, surprisingly enough, at 15 frames a second was only 29 megabits per second, so it was the lowest bitrate of everything except for the 720p, and it definitely showed. I thought that there was actually a higher visible resolution with the 2.7K than looking at the 4K. I'm going to show a time lapse. It was taken in 4K with it right now. So that shows how the 4K does when it's standing perfectly still and shooting a time lapse. So it may work very well if that's what you want, is a wide angle time lapse that you can zoom in on and pan across to give it a little bit of motion effect. It could be great for that, and for $40 or $50, that wouldn't be a bad price to pay for a time lapse camera that you have got several different options to use and several different resolutions to use. Then the 720p at 120 frames a second, I thought that looked pretty good for being 120 frames a second. Most cameras, when they go up to the higher frame rates, the image quality really falls apart. And it kind of does, but I thought this held it together pretty well and was pretty impressed with the image quality that was shown there. So who do I think this camera is for? I think this camera is probably for somebody who is wanting to get an action camera but can't afford a $300 or $400 price tag. I think this will do the job just fine. So it comes with enough accessories and it's capable enough that I think it definitely justifies its price. Another use case would be a dedicated time-lapse camera like I just said, or a dash cam. I think that it's got enough features as far as driving mode goes and loop recording goes. I think you can set it up on your dashboard and have it constantly recording for only $50. So I think this camera does okay. I'm kind of an image quality stickler, so I'm not going to recommend this to somebody who's considering a GoPro Hero 5 or something at the top level of things. If you're considering one of those cameras and you don't want to spend that much money, go for a Hero 4 Black or a Hero 4 Silver, and don't even consider this because the image quality just isn't going to be there for you. But if you're looking at like a GoPro Session and you're still kind of choking at the price, this could definitely take that place and you would be happy with the image quality you get out of it. I think this has got more features than the Session has, but probably still doesn't hang with the image quality. So there's a give and a take here, and for a quarter the price of a GoPro Session, this is a pretty good deal. And that's nearly an eighth of the price of your current GoPro Hero 5. So those are my thoughts on this camera. If you're interested in buying it, check out the link down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.